Hey guys, this is Jeff with Wiseman Automotive coming at you with another video. And this video, I want to show you the best way that I have found to do an oil change, tire rotation, basically, and also save time. Because when you're working as a flat rate technician, time is money. What I used to do, for example, I used to pull a car in and I'd put up in the air and I would get the oil draining. Then I'd go to the parts department, walk all the way over there. I would get the oil, the filter. I would walk all the way back. I'd finish up the oil change. Then I would do the tire rotation. And guess what? Oh man, this thing needs brakes. So then I'd walk back to the parts department, get price on availability of brakes. I come back. Oh, guess what? Now it needs an air filter. I'd walk back. Anyways, I finally figured out the best way that at least works for me as a flat rate automotive technician. This is the most efficient, fastest way that I have found to do a oil change, because any shop you go into, well, any dealership I should say, is going to have a multi-point inspection sheet. Now, I don't have one of those on me right now. Wish I did, but I want to show you what you should probably be doing as a flat rate technician. And this is also a good thing for the customers to watch so they can know what to expect when somebody's filling out a multi-point inspection. All right, we're going to start off inside the vehicle, okay? The first thing, when I pull it in, I'm listening to the brakes, I'm listening to the engine, I'm listening to the exhaust. One of the first things I like to do is actually turn off the radio so I can hear everything. I pull it into the shop like so, okay? And I'm going to hit the horn, make sure it works. This is also, a lot of this is actually also good if you're doing a state inspection. A lot of the same requirements, I basically kind of go over the same thing as do a state inspection. I want to let the customer know if they have something wrong with their car. I don't ever sell them anything they don't need, but you need to let them know, hey, your wipers are bad, your air filter is bad, your cabin filter needs to be changed out. You need brakes, you need tires, you have an exhaust leak. Customers don't know these things. You need to be able to tell them this. So you need to go through with every wheel that comes in and check it out thoroughly, because that is your name going out. All right, so I pull the car in. I just did the horns, and now I'm going to check the wipers. The wipers are working, and they're clearing just fine, looks like. Looks pretty good. Okay, a lot of times if you're doing a state inspection, at least in my state, you got to make sure that the rear or the front defroster works. You got to have air emitting onto the windshield. So we do that. I'm also going to activate the rear wiper here to make sure that works. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with state inspection. That's just a customer thing, but I want to make sure that it works, not smearing. I make sure that the parking brake works and it actually holds the vehicle. It applies. Make sure that the window go up and down. You know, just checking everything out that I can think of that a customer may need. Now, we're going to move on to the next part. I'm going to leave the vehicle in neutral, and I'm going to grab my hood prop tool. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to open up, pop the hood. Now, we are going to go through and check all the lights and stuff. Okay, this is for you new technicians, and maybe even you some older technicians. When you are a newer technician, you're going to start off by the hour, making that's how you make your money, is at a certain rate by the hour. But once you get experience, you're going to become a flat rate technician, which means that you're going to be being paid by the job. And like I was saying earlier in this video, time is money. If you pull a vehicle in and you have to stop the flat rate technician to check your brake lights and reverse lights and your tags and all that, after a while, that's going to get pretty annoying to the flat rate technician, because you are now asking him to stop what he's doing to come over and check what you're doing, and that's costing him money. If you do this 10 times in a day and it takes him a minute each time to come over and check all your lights, well, that's 10 minutes that he could have been working on his stuff and getting paid for. You just pulled him off of. So this is what you need to do in order to be a good employee. Buy yourself one of these. It's called a hood prop. It can also be used to push it on the brakes. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I got the vehicle in neutral, key on, engine off. I'm going to turn my light switch on here. I'm going to turn my left turn signal on. Now, I have the repair order in my hand, and I'm going to walk around the vehicle and try to look at everything to make sure all the lights and all this stuff work. Okay, I got the headlights on. It does not have fog lights, so I'm going to check all the lights as I'm going by. I'm also checking to make sure all the lug nuts are on, that the tires look at least halfway decent. We'll inspect those here in a little bit. The wipers, I'm going to run my fingers on to make sure that they are not ripped, making sure that the windshield doesn't have any cracks in it or anything. As I'm going through here, I'm also going to note on my repair order, if you see any body damage, any dents, dings, scratches, scuffs, you do not want the customer coming back and saying, well, my car wasn't scratched up before you touched it. So you want to make sure of that. I'm looking at all the lug nuts, make sure they're all attached. I'm coming back here. I see that the headlights are on. I'm going to close this garage door so we can see, hopefully, a little better. Got to make sure that the tag lights both are working. I'm going to check my rear wiper here. Now, that's not for state inspection, at least in my state, but that's just more of a customer satisfaction thing. See, like, look right here. I would note on the repair order, scuffs on hatch, long scratch mark on hatch of car, just to make sure that you kind of cover your butt on that. All right, all the lights seem to be working, like I said, on both sides. I'm going to continue now on to this side. This time, I'm going to click the clicker to the right. I'm going to put the headlights. You saw the high beam come on. So now I'm going to come around again. I'm just still scanning the vehicle, checking all my lights. Everything looks good. On the second go round, I'll probably come by and pick the hood up real quick and just prop it up. Start letting that engine cool down. Maybe take this thing's in here for an oil change. So I take the oil cap and I like to set it right there. That way I cannot shut that hood without putting that oil cap on. Now, could I potentially bust that oil cap? Yes, and I may have to spend $5 and buy them a new one. I would rather spend $5 and buy a new oil cap than $5,000 for a new engine because I forgot to put the oil cap on and it blew all the oil out of there. That's just something I do. Checking the side marker lights, making sure they work. Come back here at the back. Right signal is still working. All my lights are still working. Now I have to check my reverse and my brake lights. So I'm pretty fast, but I'm not fast enough to hit that brake pedal and then run back here. So I'm going to cut my headlights off. I'm going to install my brake pedal depressor here, or actually it's called a hood prop. I'm going to put in reverse. I am doing this with the vehicle off, mind you, okay? I turn the headlights off so that way I can differentiate between the brake lights and the tail lights. All right, reverse lights working, brake lights working. Make sure you check out that third brake light. That brake light working and reverse light is working. There. I just scanned all the lights in a matter of seconds without having to bother anybody. I just removed my brake pedal depressor. I put it in neutral. Now, on my lift, this is called a symmetrical lift, which means that the arms are the same length, so it's harder to pull a vehicle all the way up and then get out of the door, especially when you're a bigger guy like I am. If you have an asymmetric lift, that means that the arms are different lengths, and what it does, it actually sets the car a little bit backwards, a little bit back on the lifts. That way you can pull up on the plate, put the car in park, and get out without any problems. But both of them have their ups and downs. We'll probably talk about that in another video. So now that I have it in neutral and I'm out of the vehicle, I'm going to push it forward. One thing I forgot to mention, I just not thought of, before I push it forward, this is a time where I'm going to check my cabin air filter, which I just replaced. I just did a video on it, but you open the glove box. I'm going to check my cabin air filter before I put it on the rack because I cannot open that door when this vehicle is on the rack. All right. So now I'm going to push this vehicle forward. It's fairly easy to do. If you need to, grab by the tire and push it. and I got in a spot. I'm going to kick the lift underneath here, and I'm going to set the lift, and I'm going to get it a few inches off the ground. Okay, I got this thing a few inches off the ground. This helps me get it to a level where I'm comfortable working on it. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to scan. Okay, let's look at the battery, for example. Make sure there's no corrosion. If there's any corrosion, maybe you can sell them a battery service, or maybe at your shop, that's just a complimentary thing you do for your customers. If I see trash right here, a lot of times I'll get it, throw it away in the trash can. I look at sometimes I just start at the front. I look at my radiator. I make sure that the cap is on and secure. I make sure I don't see any leaks. You're going to want to get a flashlight. Okay. A lot of times I'll take this time to pop open the washer fluid there. I'll probably add some washer fluid. I'm going to be looking for leaks. Anything that doesn't look right. You know, like look at your valve cover. Make sure it's not leaking. Look at your serpentine belt. Make sure that it still looks good. We can see the grooves in there and check that over. Make sure that your antifreeze overflow tank is full. You do not want to remove this cap when it's hot, obviously, because it's under pressure. Another thing we're going to do is I want to check that air filter here in a minute. I'm looking for fuel leaks, oil leaks, looking for rotten hoses, broken hoses, mice nest. Just looking for anything that's out of the normal. Look at your brake fluid. Make sure you got plenty of brake fluid in there, okay? If your brake fluid's low, it's a good indication that their brakes are low. Might check the engine oil level while I'm here. Might pull the dipstick to the transmission, smell it, see if it smells burnt, check it out. Maybe I might put it in drive and start it up and check the fluid of the transmission level real quick. All right, so let's get into this air filter. Before I check that air filter, one thing we got to do is we got to put our fender cover on. We do not want to scratch the customer's paint. If your customer's driving a 2024 BMW or a 1984 Chevrolet piece of junk, rusted out car, whatever, treat them all the same. It doesn't matter if you think that car is a big piece of junk or if it's a really nice car, you do not want to scratch them. So, fender cover. Another thing I want to recommend is there's a thing called a mechanic's belt. It is what I wear all the time, and you can look it up on Amazon, and it is a belt that doesn't have any kind of buckle that will not scratch a vehicle's car. Okay, it's called a mechanic's belt. All right, I'm gonna pop this loose and pop this loose right here, and that should be, I think, it. No, there's one in the back. Pull this out. We're going to inspect this. I always like to remove the air filter completely. Some of them are a real pain in the butt. This one's not too bad. We're going to let that one ride, I think. If it was dirty, I would recommend a customer replace it. They say usually about 15,000 miles on most of your air filters. That's usually a good general rule of thumb. I would say it kind of depends on your driving conditions. You know, if you live in a down a dirt road or something like that, it may be a little more often. If you're just kind of, I think it depends on conditions. Now, the next thing you want to do is we want to check our battery. So we're going to get a battery tester. You're going to want to get one of these electronic ones, not just a load tester. And you're going to want to test every battery that comes in your shop. The reason is because your electronics need to have a good battery in there, because if not, you cannot expect your vehicle to run correctly. So this one's an in-car test. Verify the key is off. And this one is 520. You do not want a battery letting your customer down on the side of the road. It's above 32. Yeah, I had a feeling. This one says battery is bad. It only has 150 cold cranking amps. You can only test a battery if it's fully charged. This one was charged. The reason I thought that battery was bad is because when I started it up to pull into the shop, I kind of heard the engine go, before it fired up. It didn't sound like it was turning over fast enough for me. All right, the next thing I'm going to do now, we're going to get it up to chest height. We're going to do a tire rotation, okay? So let's do that. Okay, I just raised the vehicle up to my chest height. I'm going to put it down the locks. I made sure, I didn't show in the video, I made sure when I pulled it up about 3 inches off the ground, I actually shook the vehicle. You want to make sure that the vehicle's stable. You do not want it obviously falling. Before I do my tire rotation, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Whether this thing's in here for a state inspection or just a multi-point inspection, before I rotate tires, I grab it at the top and the bottom at the 12 and 6, and I go back and forth. I'm going like that. I'm trying to see if I have any play. That's nice and tight. I'm checking for ball joints, suspensions, problems there. Now I'm going to go back and forth like this, and I'm checking to see if this thing has any play going left and right. Now I'm checking for looseness in your steering system. I'm also looking at the tire. I'm making sure that there's no cords hanging out, making sure that it's looked like it's wearing pretty evenly, which these are. And now I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go up and down, left and right. We're good to go there. I'm going to go to all 4 corners and do this. I'm checking for wheel bearing. I'm checking for bushings that are gone bad, anything like that. All of them seem to be great. All right, now I'm going to rotate the tires. Depending on the year, make, model, what the manufacturer recommends, I typically go just back to forth with my rotation. Sometimes I may cross the front and bring the back straight up, stuff like that. Here's something controversial we're going to talk about in another video. Question is this: if you have 2 really good tires and 2 not so good tires, like they're almost better replaced, where do you put your really good tires? On the front or the rear? Some people may say, was it front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, 4-wheel drive? If you Google search, which I've done this, if you Google search all the tire manufacturers and what they recommend, every single one of them recommends that you put your best tires on the rear. The reason is because if you get into a hydroplane situation, if you know what you're doing, you can steer yourself out of a hydroplane situation. You cannot control the rear. All the tire manufacturers, no matter year, make, model, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, it don't matter. They want you to put them in the rear. That's what the tire manufacturers want you to do. I'm going to do a video on this later. We'll discuss it. It'll be controversial. We'll see about it. All right. So now I checked all this stuff. I'm going to get these tires rotated. So I'm going to grab a trash can to put this tire on. I'm going to take this tire off, put on a trash can, then we're going to inspect the brakes real quick, okay? Okay, I got all the lug nuts removed. I'm going to take this tire, I'm going to put it on a trash can. The reason I put it on this trash can is because I don't want to bend down on the floor and pick it up. I have a bad back. We'll talk about why I have bad back in another video. But right now, I don't feel like picking up off the floor, so I put it on a trash can. So I am going to inspect the brakes right now. I'm going to see how thick these pads are. The fluid was a little bit low, and I don't know if you're going to be able to come in here and see it too well, but if you take your little pocket screwdriver right here, that tip of that driver is about 4/32. The minimum requirements for brakes in this state, past state inspection, is 2/32. My opinion, it ought to be 4. But if I can put my screwdriver between the brake pad and the rotor, I know that I have more than enough, and this is more than enough. I'm also going to come in here on this side. The caliper here has a little inspection hole for the inside pad, and I'm going to put that in there. And yes, this front one has enough. It has probably about 6/32. If I had a multi-point inspection sheet, I would mark that in the yellow. And then I would also advise my customer, hey, just to let you know, your brakes are getting low. I would also show them this. Anybody ever seen one of these? Okay, so what this is, green is good, yellow is replace soon, and red is replace now. And if you look on the side, you can see that's the thickness. So right now we're in about the yellow. If you look at the tip of my screwdriver, you can see if it's as thin as the tip of my screwdriver, we need to replace it. We have more than that. We're in the yellow. So I want to tell my customer, hey, just to let you know that your brakes are going to need to be replaced soon. Now, one of the questions they're going to ask you is, well, how long do you think, how many miles do you think I have on my brakes? That's a hard question to answer because, one, are they driving mountains? Are they the type of person that likes to ride their brakes a lot? Do they pull a boat? Do they pull a trailer? There's a lot of variables. I don't typically like to give a mileage estimation. I don't be like, oh, you got about 10,000 on it. I don't like doing that because I don't know what kind of driver they are or how they're driving. So be careful. Word of caution, just be careful about the mileage because you don't want to get hung up in something. Well, you told me I had 15,000 miles and it only lasted 8. So be careful about that. And I explain it to my customers. A lot of times I say, hey, it's hard to say. I can give you a guesstimation, but that's about all it is. All right, I'm going to take this tire and I'll put on the front here. And now I'm going to put a lug nut on here, keep it from falling off. And now I'm going to take this time and we'll inspect the rear brakes. Same thing. Screwdriver back. Let's see here. Get it turned around for you guys to see a little better. Sorry for all the jiggling there. Screwdriver goes in right here. You can tell right here, I still got plenty of brake pad there. We're going to go through the inspection hole. Now, on your rear brakes, and this is just normal gasoline or vehicles, not hybrid, exclude hybrid. All right, the inside pad, I can tell, is just fine. So the customer brakes on the rear are good. The front are getting a little low. Now, what I was saying about hybrids and normal gasoline, this is a normal gasoline vehicle. It's a non-hybrid. So technically speaking, you should replace your front brake pads probably 2 times, maybe even 3 times before you ever have to touch the rear. The front brakes do roughly about 80% of your braking. The rear brakes do about 20%. So normal driving conditions, normal customer, all that stuff, you should be replacing your front pads more so than your rear. Now, on a hybrid, you won't have to. That's actually kind of the opposite. Your fronts will last forever and your rears will wear out faster. That's because of regenerative braking. We'll talk more about that in another video. All right, I'm gonna do the exact same thing, but to the other side. I always check the brakes on both sides. One side could have a sticking caliper. One side could have a collapsed hose on the brakes. So I want to make sure I check both sides, especially when I see that one, like the front here, is getting low, because the other side could be even worse than this side. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to go on up with this thing. I didn't show this, but I wanted to let you know that I did go through and check all my tire pressures and adjusted them to spec. I figured you guys didn't care about me watching me do that. All right, so next thing I want to do is take this drain plug out, and we need to get this engine oil to start draining so we get this thing out of here. So I want to see if I can do this without getting soaked in oil. Seems like you do 100 oil changes, and on the 99 one, you get soaked. With the other ones, you don't get hardly any engine oil in you. Not too bad. All right, I got that engine oil draining. Now, as that is draining, I'm just going to start here at the front, and I'm just going to look, okay? Looking, make sure you don't see any leaks, anything that's out of place. Make sure everything looks good. We're going to give this under vehicle good inspection. Okay, that engine oil is draining good. Remember, we got the cap off. I'm going to come up here like this. I'm going to locate my engine oil filter, which is right here. And I am now going to try to take a peek at everything underneath. Look at my axle shafts, make sure they're not busted. I'm looking at ball joints, stuff like that. Make sure you don't see a bunch of grease hanging out. Looking for anything that's unnatural. This is normal. This is your air conditioning vent tube. Makes condensation water, comes out of there. So that's normal to have that dripping. I'm looking for other drips though. And this thing's got the shield underneath. Looks like somebody left that off of there, which is very unprofessional. I know it's a pain in the butt to take those off, guys, but put them back. It's unprofessional to leave that stuff off. It's not yours to throw away. Customer, when they pay for that car, they pay for that part too. So anyways, making sure that my Steering system looks good. I don't see any dents or anything missing, broken, bent. Look at the exhaust. Sometimes I can go like this to the exhaust. I'll see if I hear any rattles or anything. Come on the way back here. If you have a customer that has a spare tire hanging underneath here and it's easy to get to the valve stem, make sure you check it for them. We're getting paid by the hour here, people. A lot of times your spare tire does not get checked and it will lose air. So if you want your spare tire checked, I recommend that you specifically ask for it to get checked. A lot of them are really hard to get to, and techs won't take the time to check them. You got to remember, a technician is only getting paid like 3 or 4 tenths just to do the oil change. Then you get like another 3 tenths of an hour to do the tire rotation. So that's only like 36 minutes because each tenth is a minute. So if you're getting paid a half hour to do everything, that's 30 minutes. Well, it's hard to do an oil change and check everything over in 30 minutes. All right, everything looks good. So now we're going to take that drain plug. Once it gets done draining, we're going to pop that off of there. We're going to take our oil filter pliers. This is my favorite set of pliers right here. This is what I like using. I like using these as much as I can. I even use them for other things other than just oil changes. Let's see if I can get that off of there. Not, I might have to get my other one. Come on now. All right. All right. Let that drain out. We're going to let all that drain out now, and then we'll come back. Okay, the engine oil is pretty much drained out. I got a new gasket on there. I looked up the torque spec. It's 29 foot-pounds on this vehicle. I got the oil filter off. I'm going to torque it down real quick. Just make sure, okay? And then one thing I like to do, and you'll see other technicians do this as well, they like to paint. They'll take some fingernail polish and they will paint the oil plug. And what this basically does, it tells you if anybody's tampered with it. So if you're the one, make sure you get it on there. So what I'm doing is I painted the oil plug right here, if you can tell. I painted that, and what that kind of shows is that, let's say somebody was to try to be dishonest and maybe they're looking for a new engine and they wanted to take that drain plug loose and drain all the oil out and then run down the road. Well, then they can say, hey, you were the last one to do an oil change. Well, if that seal is broken, you can prove to them that, guess what? Somebody loosened that up. Or maybe somebody's got a jealous ex-girlfriend or boyfriend and they take it loose after you've done the oil change, and then the person tries to come back and says, hey, you're the one that left it loose. Well, now you can say, no, I didn't, because look, the seal is broken. So that's why a lot of people do that. So torque down the spec. I'm wiping off the area for my oil filter to go on. Tighten that down, hand tight. All right, this is a good time to take and wipe off everything. You do not want any engine oil residue. Sometimes I'll use brake cleaner and I'll spray it off. So now I got to get this out of here. So while that engine oil is draining, remember I was checking over everything. I'm looking for leaks, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, engine oil. I'm looking for washer fluid leaking, anything that's leaking. You need to tell the customer. All right, now that I got everything back together, I'm going to put this thing down. We're going to put some engine oil in it, start it up. We'll be done with this, and we'll go from there. One thing I didn't show you was I did torque the wheels down to spec. They're 80 foot-pounds. So just so you know, I did torque all those down to spec. I did that in a uh, star pattern as well. And now we're going to put engine oil in this thing. Okay, if you do not know how much engine oil your engine takes, I usually put about 3 or 4 quarts in, and then I check it. So I just started it up. I had it on the stick, so started it up. That filled the oil filter, and now I'm going to take the little bit of oil right here. I'm going to take off my hands, and I'm going to put it on these O-rings right here. A lot of people do not lubricate these O-rings, and what happens is when people don't do that, it will freeze up in your engine there, and you end up breaking the stick. So make sure you lubricate those O-rings every time you do a oil change. All right, pull it out and check. If you look, I'm between the lines a little bit. I want to add just a little bit more to it. One thing I want you to take note of is I also had to get my jump box out and put it on the battery here, because when I went to start the vehicle, guess what? The battery was dead. So I'm going to see about selling this customer a battery. I'm sure they're going to want to do it. And that'll probably be another video. All right, let me get this all taken care of and we'll come back to you. Okay, one thing I did not mention was I was using OW20 engine oil because that's what the manufacturer recommends. So I used that. I got everything checked out. I checked my transmission fluid level. I checked all my fluid levels. Everything's good to go. I made sure this cap was back on nice and tight. Even though this thing was just in here for an oil change and a tire rotation and just a basic service, I'm still want to test drive. I want to make sure I don't feel any vibrations. I want to make sure everything's good. Before I close the hood, one thing I like to do is I like to just put my hand on the cap here, make sure that's pressed down, make sure like this cap right here, see if I can get you a good angle. The coolant is down, make sure that the radiator cap is nice and snug, oil cap's nice and snug. Go through and make sure, especially the stuff that you touched, the air filter housing, make sure that I got all those lashed on and make sure everything looks good. I want to also make sure before I get in that vehicle, I clean my hands real good. You do not want to put engine oil on the steering wheel. I've done it. We had to sit into recon, got in trouble for it. You also want to make sure you don't have any tools in your back pocket. If you're like me sometimes, I do have a bad habit of taking a wrench or something like this, and I'll stick it in my back pocket. Well, you sit in the seats, guess what you just did? You just ruined that seat for that customer. Now you got to pay for it. Or the company has to pay for it. So just make sure everything is tight and secure. Make sure that you did a professional job. Do not leave any oil on the, if you spill oil in the engine bay, make sure it all gets cleaned up. If you're working at a dealership and you got to send it to recon to get them to go through and clean it, it's better to go through and clean it, and instead of if you have any concerns about that, instead of just hoping for the best. Okay. All right, guys. So that is a way that I have found has been the fastest way for me to do it. Basically, what I do is I try to check everything out, and then I go to the parts department on the other side of the shop to get all the parts. You don't want to be walking back and forth 100 times. Another thing is you don't want to go to the service writer and be like, hey, they need an air filter. The service writer says, okay. So get a price on an air filter, get a price for the labor to put it in. And then they go to the customer and say, hey, Mr. Smith, you need an air filter. Mr. Smith goes, go right ahead. I trust you. Go ahead. And then you come back here, you get the air filter and you put it in. And then you rotate the tires, you notice they need brakes. Oh, man. You go back to the service writer. Hey, here's the parts and availability for the brakes. They need brakes. The service writer goes, okay. Hey, Mr. Smith, you need brakes now. Mr. Smith goes, okay, well, go ahead and do the brakes. Okay, so you come back down and you do the brakes. Then you come back down, you get the brake job done, you notice, oh man, they need wipers. So then you go back to parts farm, hey, they need wipers. Well, guess what Mr. Smith is going to start thinking? He's going to start thinking you're taking him for a ride. He's going to think, look, just because I bought an air filter doesn't mean I need to buy brakes and wipers and light bulbs and whatever. The best thing you can do is check it all out, smoke it all over. Do your best that you can with that. Be as diligent as possible, because if you keep selling the customer things over and over like that, they're going to think you're taking advantage of them, even though when you're not. So make sure you come up front with them and say, listen, here's what I noticed. Your brakes are bad. Here's price on your brakes. Your wipers are bad. Here's the price for replacing your wipers. And your air filter is bad. Here's the price on that. And then who knows, you may need to prioritize it. People are on a budget these days. You may say, listen, the most important thing right now is your brakes and your wipers because that's safety. Okay, your engine air filter can go another 3,000 or 5,000. It's not the best for it, but let's worry about the safety stuff first. So you may have to prioritize things for customers in that way also. But talk to your customers, be professional as always. Like I said, make sure you look over the car, make sure there's no greasy fingerprints anywhere. If there is, wipe them off, clean them off. Do not use, one time I used shop rag like this to clean off a window of a tractor when I worked at a tractor dealership. And yeah, it looked awful. That customer's $50,000, $60,000 Ford tractor, yeah, he was pretty mad when I cleaned the window with that. So that was a learning mistake. That was my first mechanic job. So make sure you use the right towels to dry things off like that with. All right, that's how you do it. That's the fastest way I found to do it. I hope this video helps. Please like, subscribe, share this, all that good stuff. Ring that bell if you want to get notified. I'm coming at you with more videos. I want to try to do the best I can by pumping out good information for you guys. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. And like always, God bless the God bless the USA.